Hi, I'm Sharon Bell with TheBayNet. Finally, election season 2018 is here and we are on countdown. It's 8 o'clock and the polls have closed and we are waiting for the results to start reporting. Special guest with me today is Todd Morgan, St. Mary's County Commissioner.
Even.
And John Bohannon, former delegate, 29B. Out in the field we have Marty Madden, who will be reporting from Calvert County, J.R. Macy, who will be reporting from St. Mary's County, Zach Hill, who also will be reporting from St. Mary's County. And if any of the viewers have any questions that you would like to ask us, just go to Facebook Messenger and ask us the questions. So anyways, how are you guys today?
We're good.
Great. I think we can declare an early favorite, and that would be Commissioner Todd Morgan. I think.
Thanks, John Bohannon. I
Has
like
won
that.
re-election.
Yeah.
We'll go out on the limb and
Take that
declare him
chance.
as the winner. He needed one vote, and I think he
Yeah.
probably got that in
Our
the early
first
vote.
unofficial.
Unofficially, yeah. Well, thank you. I
Congratulations.
want to thank all the citizens for their confidence in me, and it's a nice win. I'll be happy to be there for 4 more years, and as you know, this is my last term. I'll be term limited, so 12
Yeah.
years of county government. It's been a lot of fun. I still enjoy being the commissioner. It's a lot of fun.
Great.
And also, we had a couple of other uncontested races. Phyllis Superior will become the Register of Wills.
Right.
Right.
Rick Fritz returns as state's attorney,
Yeah.
and then Christy Kelly returns as the
County
county
treasurer.
treasurer. All 3 of them were also unopposed. So the rest of them, I think, we'll have to wait for a little
Yeah,
bit.
Just see a bit.
See
There's
how-
some close races out there that we are definitely watching, and hopefully we'll start reporting to you soon, the precincts as they come in.
So apparently there was a machine malfunction at Park
Park
Hall,
Hall.
which is one of the larger precincts. So we may be a little bit late getting some of those results, but otherwise, hopefully, some of the others will start rolling in.
Yeah, for the most part, things have been going. For those who have not been outside all day, like me, it's been relatively smooth. A little bit of rain in the morning slowed a few people down, but then the voter traffic became somewhat consistent. Ridge Firehouse, obviously, around lunchtime was doing really, really well because if you haven't been down for Ridge Firehouse, you got stuffed ham sandwiches, and they serve 600 a day, 300 chicken salad sandwiches, and so you get to eat while you dine, or dine while you vote, or whatever you want to look at. So it's been a good day out there, real steady, and the weather doesn't seem to have impeded anyone from coming out who wanted to vote.
Yeah, early voting, definitely there was about 9,000 people who came out on early voting, and as of 3 o'clock today, there were 17,900 people who have come out to vote. So definitely early voting, earlier in the day has started. What happened after 3, hopefully the trends continued.
Yeah, I think that what I've witnessed, I think John has also, is that we had around 9,000 people early voted this year, which represented between 13 and 14% of all the eligible voters in the county. And when you look at the R's and the D's, independents, the Republicans were up about 500 at that time. When we go to the 3 o'clock vote, I think as Sharon said, we had how many?
3 o'clock, we had 17,900 who came out to vote.
And at that time, if you just go through the real fast math, the Republicans were up about 1,500. So, you know,
Yeah.
parlay that out a little bit and figure early voting is one piece, regular voting is another, and trends just seem to be consistent across the board. I mean, I don't see a blue wave, I don't see a red wave. I just see St. Mary's County voting patterns are
Yeah.
pretty consistent.
In
Would
terms
you
of
say, John?
turnout, yeah.
Yeah.
So as of 3 o'clock, it sounds like about 36% of registered voters had cast ballots.
Right.
If you combine the early voting plus those who showed up today. So between 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock, when the polls just closed, we'll see how many more show up. But I think it will probably exceed 4 years ago. That's
I
what
think
it
you're
looks
right,
like.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
last 4 years ago, the midterm had about 50% voter turnout.
Yeah.
And just getting anecdotal evidence across the state turnout's been pretty strong also. So we'll see, you know, if that, where that bodes for everybody at the end of the day. Or end of the night, I guess I should say.
Yep. Starting to get some national results in early on, and some polling places, I guess, closed as early as 5 and 6 o'clock.
5 and 6 o'clock. Indiana closed early, and we're not sure where that
And
is.
Kentucky.
Kentucky
Kentucky.
closed. So we're sort of cheating on you guys. There's a screen over here we can sort of watch at the same time and watch
Sort
the
of.
national elections. Well, sort of. We can go from
We're
there.
going back and forth.
Right. I think some of the interesting things that, I'm watching, obviously is the race in 29B between Delegate Ray and Brian Crosby. Now, I'm looking at it, that's too close to call. And also from the commissioner seats, I can tell you that I don't think that there's any race I can look at and tell you is a flat out sure shot. I think when I get to the other elections throughout the county, as John has pointed out, I think those are pretty much been settled early on. But I think the delegate race and the 4 commissioners are something that, particularly for the St. Mary's County residents, what really affects you. Those are the ones I'm going to be watching really closely.
Yeah, definitely the delegates are definitely close races there.
I think we should point out that, and really thank all the candidates. Todd's been through some races. I've been out there myself. To put yourself before the public and put yourself on the ballot. First of all, it's a teeth gnashing day for all those candidates. So we tell all of them, job well done. We congratulate you for putting your name out there. Be willing to serve the public in an elected capacity, and we hope the night goes well. There's winners and losers, so we hope that all goes well. I think the day's been pretty uneventful in terms of voting locally. Anyway, I haven't heard of any glitches other than
No, except for that Park Hall incident. There's
machine
been
malfunction.
And I want to thank also, the tenure of these elections can get awfully rambunctious and a lot of accusations flying, but as I've roamed the county all day, I'll say, and it's at both sides. The election, the polls have been calm. There haven't been many arguments internally or externally and things like that. So I just want to thank the public and, as John said, also to the candidates, for doing this. And I'll say this, on the other side of the coin, the candidates put a lot on the line, but so do their spouses and families. And I don't think until, and John will attest to this with Mary and me with Maria and everything, this is hard. It takes a lot of time, it's a lot of toil, it's a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice. So as John said, you really thank the candidates for having, the guts to go out there and do it, and they also to their families for what they've had to endure over the last year or so.
Yeah, it is clearly
it's a hard road.
It's a sacrifice. Not only as the candidate, because it's pretty high tempo during the election, but if and when you're in office, it takes up a lot of time. People say, well, it's a part-time job as county commissioner.
Baloney.
Yeah, part-time job, 7 days a week.
Exactly.
Same thing with being a delegate, a member of the state senate. Any of these jobs take up a lot of time. So it is, I think, worth pointing out the sacrifices that not only the candidates make, but also their families. And we're lucky to have people who are willing to run.
Exactly.
Yeah, very lucky.
And believe me, for the Senate, the delegate, and the commissioners, this is not a high-paying job whatsoever. So no one goes home with those salaries and expects, to earn a livelihood and raise a family that way. Because trust me, I think at $36,000 for the commissioners, $40,000 or so for the Senate and the delegates, it's not a lot of money.
You break it down by the hour.
It's less than minimum wage.
Less than minimum wage.
And it's $8.75 an hour, not 15.
Right.
Yeah. So locally, I agree with Todd. You've got 4 commissioner races. One, as we said, has already been decided. Commissioner Morgan will go back for another term, third and final term. And then we've got some pretty hot other races.
Mm-hmm.
John O'Connor versus the
Clark
independent Clark Guy.
Clark Guy.
And
That's an interesting race.
interesting race. And we forget, or just to remind folks, the commissioners run countywide. So even though they're representing the north part of the county, as in the case of incumbent Commissioner John O'Connor, he has to run down a ridge. He's got to run in every one of the election districts. And then you've got Mike Hewitt versus Rose Frederick. I think they've run a good campaign, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
You've got
You got a 3-way one down in the 1st district, which will be
Yeah.
really interesting. You have Timmy Ridgel, the Democrat. You have Eric Cole, the Republican, and Roy Alvey, an independent. And Roy's been a Republican, so it's sort of interesting. Roy's been a Republican who didn't run the primary. CLERK guy's been a Democrat, but couldn't run the primary because he's a retired military and a civil servant. And some people may ask the question, well, how can you be a government employee run for office under the rules of the Hatch Act? And there's a very fine part of the law in Maryland, or it's federal, I guess,
Federal,
that sits there and says that if the predominant amount of income in your county is derived from a federal facility, i.e., is the lot of the income in St. Mary's County a derivative of Pax River? The answer is yes.
Right.
Hence, that gives you the ability to run as an independent in St. Mary's County because of the relationship of Pax River. So this is the first time, as far as I know, someone has done that. So, it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah, the Hatch
Yeah.
Act rules got relaxed a good number of years ago,
Okay.
but prior to that, you could not do it.
Mhm.
And so I forget how many years ago, but that allows Mr. Guy to run
Right.
as an independent.
So, and if you go to Virginia over in King George, everyone in King George runs as an independent. So there's no party affiliation. So ironically, on their side, I think 4 of their 5 commissioners are federal employees at Dahlgren.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's just funny how
Interesting.
things are, how state lines and party affiliations and things like that work. But going back, like I said, then we have the really interesting race for county commissioner president. We have incumbent President Randy Guy run against Howard Thompson. And I think as we watch these results come in, I'm sort of watching, for Howard. He's a Hollywood guy, been here forever, done a great job with Christmas in April, works out the Lundberg School, etc. But how does he fare through the Hollywood area as a percentage of the vote, and then figure out how does that swing into the rest of the county?
Yeah. That's going to be a close race.
Yeah,
close
that's
race about it.
definitely a close race.
It's,
There's no doubt.
Howard's well known, well liked, as you point out, and but Randy Guy's been steady at the helm as president of the Board of Commissioners. Got elected in an upset victory 4 years ago,
Jack.
beating incumbent Jack Russell. So that'll be an interesting one. We also have other races. The judges of the Orphans Court. That race is
Yeah, we have
underway.
5 contestants for 3 slots.
For 3 slots. So,
And I'll say this about the judge of the Orphans Court, I really don't think should be a partisan race. They make it partisan for, say, you have 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats running, and quite frankly, when you look at the responsibilities of those officers, that's about as nonpartisan as it gets. So, maybe someday they'll flip that around and just make that a nonpartisan race.
most of them function pretty
Independent,
apolitical.
yeah.
They're pretty bipartisan or non-political. The other big race that we have, and whenever you have a sheriff's race, it's a big race.
Mhm.
In every county, there seems to be a hotly contested sheriff's race. Incumbent sheriff, and might as well say very popular, Tim Cameron is being challenged by one of the former deputies, Bellavoine, and we'll see where that one goes. I would say, I would have to say at this point, Tim Cameron would be the favorite, but we'll see
I would
how
agree.
the numbers come in.
And I think, I've worked with Tim now for 8 years, and John's worked with him for many. And Tim's done an absolutely great job. Also, not being partisan or anything, it's just he's done a great job. And the way he's handled the incident at Great Mills High School with the shooting and some of the other incidents with the opioids, etc. You couldn't find a better sheriff in the state of Maryland, I think, than Tim Cameron.
All the polls point to Cameron basically winning. So I would say definitely it's favoring Cameron.
Yeah.
I think that as John points out, we have the national election also in the state. Let's start with the state. I think that we have Governor Hogan, who, according to the polls early on, is a favorite. But I think sometimes when I look at St. Mary's, when you do the dissection of the state, let's remember that when all the math comes in at the end of the day, St. Mary's is about 2% of the vote. So while we're enthusiastic about what the governor's done down here, I'm a 100% Governor Hogan supporter. We'll see how he does up in those big 5 center parts of the county, or center parts of the state, which is Center Maryland, which controls so many votes.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back in a couple of minutes. Hi, we are back from our break, and we are still waiting for the results to come down from the election board. The St. Mary's County Election Board is waiting for the state to say they can start releasing results, but they will slowly be coming in. John, you said there were a couple people that we forgot at the beginning?
Two more declared winners at this point because they were uncontested races, and that is the school board races. Rita Weaver returns to the school board, as does the chair of the board, Karen Bailey. So congratulations to both of them. They were both unopposed. And the reason for I think the local board of elections is waiting is the state board is probably holding everybody up to make sure there aren't any polling places where they had glitches or long lines. Sometimes they'll extend the voting closing at a certain polling place until 8:30 or 9 o'clock,
Right.
in which case they'll hold everybody else's results up. Once the state gives the okay, then we'll start getting results,
Yeah.
which should be pretty quickly. Apparently they're starting to get results in now in Leonardtown. So
Right.
Yeah.
so we should start getting them, I would think, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should start getting the results in, I would think, pretty much any time.
But Baron, this is not an unusual event. Might seem a little bit weird, but it's what it is. Hey, by the way, I want to think. I think that your old boss, Congressman Hoyer, will probably be cruising to whatever the next election number is for him. So
He will be.
I mean, I congratulate you and him.
Yeah, thank you. They're actually set up watching a lot of the results, as you might expect, from around the country.
Mm-hmm.
He's been traveling to a lot of different districts all over the U.S., trying to help candidates, mostly in more moderate Democratic districts. So he's spent a lot of time traveling, and they've been watching. I was talking to them earlier. They were watching some very key races in Kentucky, Virginia. That the one race has already come in where Wexton was declared the
Right.
winner.
Mhm.
The other was the former Majority Leader Eric Cantor's district, where the incumbent
Bratt.
Congressman Bratt apparently has a tough race. They were watching that one. I'm not sure where that is now. Some of those results are probably coming in on TV. But they're beginning to watch, and ultimately, as everybody knows, what it could mean is the Democrats take back control of the House. So,
Right.
so it'll be a long night. Some people think it could be if it's real close and comes down to a handful of districts, and they happen to be in California. It could take a while.
Yeah,
Exactly.
We may not
late
know
night.
tonight, or
Yeah.
it could be a
Yeah.
few days, in fact. But
Hey, John, one of the things that the governor's been working hard on is this thing called Drive for Five.
right.
And in case what you guys don't know out there is that the Republicans need 5 additional Senate seats to have a veto-proof minority majority inside the Senate. So there were 8 districts, I believe, that the governor had targeted to get 5 more Republican seats. What do you think of that? 'Cause you're much more of the state.
8 or 9. So I was on the phone this afternoon with some people, and of course there's 2 interpretations, 2
Exactly.
projections, and so I kind of heard both of them. Democrats were feeling pretty good on a couple of those areas. Kathy Klossmeyer up in the Towson area, or not Towson, I'm sorry, over in the north of Baltimore area is in a very tight battle. Democrats thought she would probably squeak that out. Republicans were hopeful. Jim Mathias down on the Lower Eastern Shore represents Ocean City, facing always a tough district. And,
The Mary Beth Cardoza.
Mary Beth Cardoza. So those 2 races. Jim Broshin, incumbent senator up in Towson, left to run for county executive in Baltimore County. So that was an open seat, probably going to go Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So the Republicans will end up picking up, my guess, probably 3 seats.
What do you think? I think, for all the BayNet voters out there, we have Charles County in our viewing range too.
Yep.
And you have, the big upset was Ellis
Middleton.
beating over Mac Middleton, and
Yeah.
Dotson switched from being run for delegate for senator. So I think that makes it really, unusual that seat could be in play. I mean, Charles County has gotten really diversified in how its voting patterns have gone over the last few years. So you got any idea on that one?
From what I heard today, if you go back a month or so ago, and even in the weeks building up to the election, I think the Dotson folks were feeling fairly optimistic they might be able to take that
That's
seat.
another interesting race.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. Today, what I heard is there was very heavy turnout, which surprised me because there aren't really many other contested races in Charles County, but very heavy voting. especially in the Waldorf area. I would think that benefits Arthur Ellis,
Okay.
who's the Democratic nominee. Probably be a close race, but my guess is Arthur Ellis probably goes on to win.
Okay. So you think 3 out of 5? Good
Yeah.
guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
That's, I mean, that's what I was hearing today is, and that's more the Democratic version. They were thinking they would. There might be 3 that the governor and the Republicans pick up, but otherwise it's not going to hit the 5.
gotcha. Okay. Well,
Talk to
it's
the
just-
Republicans, I'm sure they're like, they were anywhere between 5 and 9 is what
You
they
know,
were.
I mean, I saw when I saw the numbers, there was either 9 seats or 8 or 9 seats up, and they wanted to get 5. So,
Yeah.
and now the governor's out campaigning, actively for
Yeah.
those seats along the way.
Yep.
And then obviously in the House of Delegates, on a state level, however it comes out, it comes out. But the Democrats will still maintain a good majority up
I
there.
think that in the
Yeah.
House, the Democrats are probably going to pick up a few. That would be my guess. There's a few contested races, one up in Frederick County and in Frederick City. And what you've had there is a lot of folks from Montgomery County who have moved to the north.
Yeah.
So a little bit more liberal. You have a first-term Republican incumbent, a guy by the name of Delegate Folden, who is in a very tight race. Could get defeated tonight. Maybe if there's heavy turnout, which it appears to be, he might become a casualty. So that might be one. Overall, the Democrats are thinking they might pick up 2-3 seats over the Republicans.
Interesting. No, if the governor does get reelected, which I'm assuming is going to happen,
I think
I'll be on the side of
polls are
Team
closed. I
Hogan.
would say that's probably happening.
Yeah.
Redistricting will take place in 2020, and it's all we should know. The governor gets to redraw the lines, and obviously, there were some people not real happy with the way Mr. O'Malley drew the lines this time, and that's being challenged. But if you think about it, when I look at this thing locally, and they would, draw some fair lines, I'm not going to one way or the other. It almost seems that St. Mary's County could almost have 3 delegates and a senator. Calvert could have 2 delegates and a senator, and then Charles County they're going to end up with 4. Maybe I don't know what their population is. 4 and 1. You got any ideas or any thoughts on that one at all?
Yeah.
I mean,
In
it's
some ways, I'm not sure Southern Maryland changes a whole lot with redistricting. There's certain things, like you take 29B, my old district. It's a peninsula.
right.
So as population grew and you had to shrink in size, you just come further south, which is what my district ended up doing. I don't see a great deal of change locally, at least in the legislative races. At the congressional level, there's some speculation that if Governor Hogan wanted to, he could significantly change the 5th congressional district. Right now, if you take Prince George's and the piece of Charles County, that's more than, by far more than Calvert and St. Mary's combined. And as most people know, you look at the demographics, heavily Democratic in Prince George's and Charles. You take St. Mary's and Calvert counties, combine them with Anne Arundel, and that becomes a different, slightly different dynamic for that congressional district. But even then, I don't think it'll be too significantly different.
In Calvert County, do you think there's any close races over there?
I think the big, the sheriff's race again is always full of
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
drama and whatnot. I would say the incumbent sheriff gets returned. There was probably more focus on that in the primary, but I haven't really heard of any significant.
Marty
other
Madden,
races.
who is reporting from Calvert County, he has said that 1,631 absentee ballots
Are out.
are out from Calvert County. So
Huh.
if there are any close races in Calvert, it
big
won't be
number.
decided until probably Thursday, after they're done
Yeah,
counting.
and there's 2 absentee ballot countings. Those can be nail biters. If a race comes down to that.
Yeah, you know that.
Yeah, I've been through that myself. Yeah. So,
Well, Calvert, remember also you have Pat Nutter's leaving,
yeah.
Yeah.
so he's out, and then Evan Schlagenoff, he's left, so he's leaving. I think Mike Hart down at the lower end of the county, he's sitting pretty safe.
Yeah.
And then it's really weird over in Calvert. I say that just watch it. I mean, you have Tim Hutchins running for county
Yeah.
commissioner over there, who's a former head of the state police. former state delegate. You have Buddy Hance running for commissioner over there, who's
Former Democrat.
former Democrat,
Yeah, former-
Secretary of Agriculture.
Great guy.
Yeah.
So I say it's so funny how while we're separated by this bridge, I mean the dynamics in Calvert right now are much different. And if you look at how Calvert's divided, much like St. Mary's, you know, Calvert sort of has a line that exists somewhere between Lusby and Prince Frederick, and you know the people south of the line associate with down here, and then Prince Frederick north. That's a very much a commuter population driving in D.C. every day. In St. Mary's, you know, we have our northern part of St. Mary's County, north of Hollywood, and I think I've looked at the population of St. Mary's. For those that don't know, about 75% of the people who live in St. Mary's work in St. Mary's. Whereas I've looked at Charles, it's about totally different. 75% of the people commute out every day. And in Calvert County, it's getting close to 65% who live there. So Calvert is becoming a bedroom community. Charles is a bedroom community. And ironically, if you look at North St. Mary's County, it's become sort of a bedroom community too. So everyone talks about the way traffic flows, and all you got to do is go up and stand at Golden Beach Road every morning and watch the traffic, you know, is moving north. It's not moving south.
So we have some first results.
Yeah.
These are unofficial,
Okay.
unofficial
yes.
results.
Unofficial.
This is just from one precinct, and that's Great Mills High School. Brian Crosby has a total of 566 votes. Deb Ray, 361. That's the only race, unfortunately, that I got results. But that's a pretty strong lead there of 61% for Brian, polling for Brian Crosby over Deb Ray. I would think Brian's going to do well in that particular precinct, but that's a
Yeah.
pretty strong return. I would think if you're Brian Crosby, you're feeling pretty good about
I'm sure
about
he's
that kind of
happy
early
right now,
results.
yeah.
And I'm sure at this point they're probably getting some early results from other locations too.
I do have a note here that says NBC4 has declared Governor Hogan reelected. So
No surprise.
no
there.
surprise there. Congratulations to Governor Larry Hogan.
The only thing to watch there will be how big is the end result. of
Right,
the
how big,
victory.
yeah, exactly.
I have a couple side
Yeah.
bets going that he breaks 55. But
Do you really?
I do, yeah.
Well, he's a
I
popular
wouldn't
guy.
doubt
He's
it.
done real well, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it, yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
for sure. Yeah, so they should start coming in
Yeah.
time.
And what we're getting, guys, for the unofficial results is that the Board of Elections, each poll reports to the Board of Elections their results, and then they post those results at each individual polling place. So while John says we have an unofficial result, the tape gets read, the tape gets put out, and John has a copy of the Great Mills High School tape. And you know, I agree with John. Part of the way that we look at the county, and you know, being in politics and stumping for a number of years, you start with Park Hall, you go down Great Mills Road corridor there, and that's a very heavily Democratic-run precinct,
Yeah.
or series of precincts along the way. And then the way the peninsula drives down, you got Ridge, the Ridge Firehouse, and then down in Valley, you got Valley 1, Valley 2, the elementary school, and then St. George Improvement Center.
Yeah. Obviously, I know the 29B district pretty well. That's probably the best Democratic performing precinct that we just reported,
Right.
where Brian appears to have gotten about 61% of that vote. The tougher ones will be, as we were talking earlier, Valley Lee will be probably closer. In the 8th district, if it holds even close to the 61%, there's big numbers throughout the 8th district.
Yeah.
And that would appear to be pretty good news for Brian.
And the 8th district is around,
Lexington
It's
Park,
Lexington
Park.
Greater Lexington Park.
Up as far as Wildwood.
yeah, it's more like on 235, yeah.
Yeah, we have, I believe there's, in the 8th district, there's 10 polling places, starting with 2 up at Wildwood at Evergreen Elementary, Greenview Knolls, Green Holly, Spring Ridge, Lexington Park Elementary, Great Mills High School, Park Hall, and I probably missed something along the way. But that sort of gives
Yeah,
you
there's quite a
how
few.
the development district, I think, is going to be critically important, you know, for the economic success of this county. If you look at this thing pragmatically, you have the METCOM and the water and sewer lines in there. You have the majority of the roads in there. It's the area the state has designated as we have designated as commissioners as the development district. And then we have town centers such as Hollywood, Charlotte Hall, we have the municipality of Leonardtown, which is separate and distinct to all of us. Or from the commissioner's point of view, for those that don't know, Leonardtown is incorporated by itself, and Leonardtown has its own mayor, has its own city council, etc. And the commissioners really have no say over the functioning or the management of Leonardtown proper. And I think a lot of people get that confused sometimes. So why aren't you doing this for Leonardtown? Leonardtown, they even have their own taxing district up there, and they have their own water and sewer plants. So Leonardtown is the county seat. It works out really, really well for everybody. But there is a subtle difference how the county is run with Leonardtown and the rest of the county.
So I'm getting some more unofficial results, and these are texts coming from some folks who have been involved with the Deb Ray and the Brian Crosby campaign in particular. Somebody just said, and these are campaign volunteers who are calling in the results, and they're saying that with 9 precincts that they've tallied, Brian Crosby is up by about a little over 600 votes.
Is he really? Wow.
So
That's amazing. NBC is called Ben Cardin.
no surprise there.
No surprise.
Hogan, Cardin.
Yeah.
I would think Brian Frosch cruises to re-election as the Attorney
And Peter
General.
Franchot.
Peter Franchot is unopposed, so he's re-elected.
And I think when we get to that state level, for those offices, I don't think there's a single surprise in anything we've just said along the way.
Yeah, the big thing, you pointed it out earlier, what's going to happen with those, in particular in the Senate. I think the House is not going to shrink in terms of it's the Democrats' current majority. The Senate could, to the point, if the Republicans were able to pick up 5 Senate seats, then that would affect their ability to override vetoes
Yeah.
for Governor Hogan. And that makes a big difference when it comes to things like redistricting.
Mhm.
So that'll be the one thing to watch.
It is
Right.
critical. I don't think a lot of people understand how Maryland politics works with how the vetoes and things like that work. So when political pundits like John and me are sitting here talking, there's cause and effect everything that goes on inside the state. And why is the government saying what he's been saying, and why are you hearing what you're hearing on the news? Sometimes it doesn't get explained real well, but we're doing our very best tonight to do our best as little novices down here at the lower end of the county to sort of clue y'all into what's up.
Yeah, and trying to get the results out to you as soon as we can get them. For sure.
Yeah, so I would think they're still waiting on the state board of elections to go ahead.
Yeah, I think, like I said, with the turnout being so heavy up in the north, particularly the urban areas, while the polls do close at 8, the people who are waiting in line are allowed an opportunity to vote because they've been there. So like they draw a line, and those people get in, and then they have to tally those votes. And the idea is just to make it as transparent as possible that someone's not announcing results and then finding out what happens. So you're going to say to me, well, why does NBC declare Hogan already a winner, Cardin already a winner? They do exit polls in those big urban areas. They can get a real good feel of where things are, and that gives them the leeway to declare a victor. And we've seen that happen nationwide. 8:01, someone's declared a winner, and the polls have just closed, so obviously no votes have been counted yet.
Yeah.
But guess what? We're declaring a winner.
There's one other race we haven't mentioned, Fay Wheeler and Debbie Burch
Yeah.
for clerk of the court. Pretty hotly contested. There is no incumbent. The incumbent,
Joni.
Joni Williams, has retired, so I think both of them have run a good race.
That's been, I think John's right, it's been a really good race. They've been very upfront and honest. And the thing is, they both have a lot of experience. They've both been in that job or that office now for 20 plus years, each having different roles and responsibilities. So it isn't like we're going into that election with, looking at 2 candidates who've never done anything like this before, never stepped into the job. So you're looking to have someone replace Joni Williams who does have the experience, that does know how the office runs. And I guess as John said, the race between Fay and Debbie, it's going to be close too. So it's funny, on the national level, we can sort of see what's happening inside Maryland, but all politics is local. So how the local results come out are, what's going to be governing the county here for the next 4 years or so.
Yep. No results yet coming in locally, but clearly things are beginning to move across the state with the Senate being called for Senator Cardin, the governor's race. I would think to call the governor's race this early, the numbers had to be pretty widespread.
Yeah.
There had to be quite a difference between the two.
Well, if you're bored, the Westin Hotel in Annapolis is where the governor's holding his party. I know there's some people from down here going up soon, so just to let you know.
Yeah, we're really hoping to get some results in soon. We gotta wait. It is what it is.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we will return in a few minutes. I have to turn that back off. We're back from break, and we did have some videos planned, but we were having some technical difficulties, so we will play those videos at a later time. Anyways, when we were out on break, a few things have developed. John, do you want to kind of...
Yeah, and again, we'll very strongly stress these are unofficial results. These are just coming in mainly through texts from some people. I know that the Brian Crosby campaign had folks out at the various polling places, and they were reporting numbers in. And they're getting numbers at the polling places. It's just the Board of Elections hasn't started officially releasing them yet. But what they're saying is with about 10 out of the 13 precincts in District 29B, that Brian Crosby is almost 400 votes ahead. I would say, knowing that district, knowing the numbers and all, that's a tough margin to make up with just 3 precincts left.
Right.
Deborah would really have to come on strong and really crush him with pretty hefty margins in those 3 remaining. And I don't even know which 3 remaining precincts they are, but I would say at this point I would be feeling pretty good if I was Brian Crosby.
Okay. So still there are no unofficial results that have been reported from the Maryland State Election Board.
Also, remind folks, these are just voting day results. That
Right.
doesn't include
Early voting
yeah,
and
all the
yeah.
early voting results. So you have to factor that in. There's a lot of absentee ballots out. So
So do you know in 29B how many early voters came out?
We
I
don't
don't-
know.
I don't remember what
Yeah,
those-
I don't think they broke them down. We'll know later. I thought they used to release those right at 8 o'clock. I ran into one of the elections judges tonight, Ann Rayleigh, who said they will hold those until all the other precincts have reported. And I think that's new. I don't think they did that. I thought last time
That
we
was the
had
first
those,
thing reported. Yeah,
they
you're right.
reported
Yeah.
those. And they list that as precinct number 37, I think
Right.
she said, because we have 36 voting places.
Mm-hmm.
37 is all the early voting results, so they come out. They'll
Oh, I didn't
release
know
those
that.
at the end.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
I think that's a new procedure. I don't
Yeah,
remember that last time.
every year, folks, they change the rules.
Trying to
So
make them better. Yeah.
we're always trying to be better. Yeah. And sometimes the getting better just makes it more complicated. So, like I said, we know there were 9,071 voters who early voted.
Right.
Those have all been counted and tabulated, but they're sitting in the hold pattern also. So if you ever fly an airplane and just get stuck flying around an airport, you're watching the same thing we are. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are frustrated also that polls been closed for an hour and everyone wonders what's going on. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Where's our results?
Time will tell.
Time
Yeah.
will tell.
So, well, there's
We're on TV,
oh,
live on Facebook.
That's us.
Crosby and Ray, so waiting on some unofficial results to post. Statewide, I haven't heard anything more out of any of the other delegate races or Senate races. Look, there's Hogan and Jealous. I don't think there's any real surprise there.
Right.
No.
They've already declared Hogan as the winner. I think the big issue there is by what margin. Again, I had a little side bet saying he'd probably get better than 55%. My Democratic friends won't like me betting in that, but I just think that's the reality.
The governor's extremely well liked, and I think
Yeah.
he's been,
Had a heck of a lot of money.
raised a lot of money.
And it really didn't have any missteps, either in his campaign. I thought he ran a very effective campaign. I thought Mr. Jealous, had a hard time getting his underway and kind of gaining traction anywhere outside of. They focused mostly on Baltimore City and some other areas. Never made it out into many of the other areas, and you could see months ago this wasn't.
Quite frankly, I don't think Mr. Jealous. Susie Turnbull came down here a couple times. Susie Turnbull was lieutenant governor candidate with Mr. Jealous, and she's been down here a couple times. So we've never saw Mr. Jealous.
No. No. So that's starting to get some clarity, especially nationwide. But
I think that also the governor's done a great job of governing. I mean, this is a 2-to-1 Democrat state, and for a Republican to be reelected, I can't remember when that happened.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been a long, long time.
I think McKeldin in the 50s.
That was when you and me were born. So, so for all you youngsters out there,
I think it was actually before us. The governor has very adeptly distanced himself and stayed away from that, and I think done a very good job of staying focused on Maryland, and clearly won the popularity of
Yeah, he's
Maryland.
very well liked.
Yeah. So he'll be back for 4 more years.
he'll be down to visit his grandchildren in Leonardtown.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I think people have come to like a split with the executive branch being held by one party and the legislative by another for at least in their mind, the check and balance of it. And that's why I think it's going to be difficult for the Republicans to pick up all 5 of the seats they wanted to pick up in the Senate.
Gotcha.
In the House, not much movement. If anything, the Democrats will improve their margin. And I think for that reason, if it was all Democrats, it might be a different story.
Well, it's been all Democrats. From my perspective, it's been all Democrats for a long time. So
Has been,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of fresh air here for
That's
us.
what most people say, yeah.
Yeah. So,
For a very long time.
yep.
A couple other things on the ballot, and John, you can help
Yeah,
with
there's
this
some
one.
Constitutional questions. We didn't.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
we
that's
talked
right.
about
We have 2
constitutional questions.
Yeah.
And we had 2 on the ballot down here. One was the lockbox for the education funds based upon casino revenues. And you were chaired the education committee up there in Annapolis for a number of years. So
I did.
what's your take on that?
As a, it's a popular move. Frankly, the Democrats put it out as, without sounding so cynical, Democrats thought this would be a good rallying cry to sort of safeguard education funding, and it would be a popular thing, and they would put it on the ballot. Again, the governor was pretty crafty in essence, owning that issue, even though he sort of opposed it initially. He embraced it in the end, said, look, this is the right thing to do, and we're going to do this. And it became very non-controversial. You didn't really see, other than people feeling good about that measure passing, it doesn't really have that many teeth. In fact, the purest, as an appropriator or somebody who really deals with state budgets, you want to leave yourself some flexibility, to move money around, but it's all fungible. In the end, it's sort of a feel-good measure that, look, the public feels good about it. They feel like it's a safeguard, so it
But
passes.
it's not really a safeguard, is it?
In the end, there are certain mandates that are required of the governor that he funds so much every year. In addition to introducing the state budget, the governor introduces often, not always, but often introduces a companion bill called the BRFA, the B-R-F-A, the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act. And what that is sort of a mother may I. It says, if the state law says I have to fund at this level, but like when the budgets were really lean in the 2009, 2010 timeframe, we didn't have the money. So we had to come in and say, Mother may I need permission to back down the required legal funding for this program, and I'm only going to fund it at 90% of what you're saying I need to fund it at. So you can, everything is, there's an out for kind of everything. There's always emergency overrides on those kind of provisions.
And I think there's a couple of things a lot of people we want to discuss, since we have a couple of minutes here, is that when you look at this the county budget, much like the state budget. The state budget is based upon formula. And everybody says, oh, we have all this money up there. I think 83%, correct me if I'm wrong, of the state budget is a formula. So whether you like it or don't like it, the only way to change the amount is to change the formula. So you got 17% play, I shouldn't say play, discretionary funding.
That you get to
In the county, it's much the same. And I think many people just think, well, everything just goes here and goes there. But if you start to look at the county funding and how we appropriate money, it's very interesting how our budget cycle works against our expenses. And there's been a lot of discussion about the budget, but it should be noted that the last couple of years, we haven't made budget. Based upon our budget and our revenues, we're not making it, but the way we've been sort of having an excess or a reserve is that we haven't been meeting our expenses either. So for the next board coming in, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 4 new people or however, it's going to be a challenging time for us. But at the same time, a lot of the problems that the counties complain about vigorously are unfunded mandates. And I'm looking now to talk about Kerwin. If you aren't familiar with Kerwin, Brett Kerwin was the chancellor of the University of Maryland. He set up a magnanimous group to study why and how we can make education better in the state of Maryland. And the Kerwin Commission has been working for a long, long time, but today's an election day, and we haven't seen any of the results of what the proposed costs are going to be. And I'll sit there looking on the TV and believe, I believe it's purposely by design because it's going to be a big number.
It's going to be in the billions.
Yeah, and it becomes a legislative issue because the Kerwin report will be released. My guess is by the middle of December. It'll have a bill cost. It'll be sent over to the legislature with a new legislature coming in, and then they're going to have to figure out how they compromise and pay for whatever the billions of dollars are. So, what's your take on that one?
The governor will have the opportunity to include some funding if he wishes. When he submits his budget, he'll prepare that, finalize it in December, and then by January, when the legislature's getting underway, almost towards the end of January, he'll put forth the budget, and it may or may not include the Kerwin recommendation. I suspect it won't. The number is going to be large, as you said. You were talking about the county budget. Over half the county budget is education. And most of that funding ends up coming from the state in the form of it's all formula driven. And many of the other programs are all formula driven. So you're correct. The amount of discretionary room that you have at the county commissioner table is somewhat limited.
Yeah. We have obviously we have the maintenance of effort requirement for education, and it literally, folks, that takes about half of our budget up at the end of the day. The next biggest chunk goes to the sheriff, and quite frankly, the sheriff was the sheriff didn't get everything he was asking for last time, but he was also short deputies. So those deputies are pretty much, he's fully staffed with the corrections and the patrol level. So I'm expecting to see the sheriff come in to make up for the amount of money that he'll be needing. And just for your knowledge, when we hire a deputy, it's about $180,000 a person when a deputy comes on. By the time you pay for his training, his car, his uniform, and all that stuff. Now, we tie to that, we're also, and John and I can attest because we represented the Lexington Park area, the tragedy of Great Mills High School. And we have the new school resource officer bills and school protection monies and things like that. And there's nothing more that I think we can be concerned about than protecting kids in the schools. That's going to be a hefty bill also. So I'm looking, going down line of seeing, a lot of mandated bills we're going to have to pay. We've agreed to school funding. We've agreed to staff the sheriff. We're going to get maintenance of effort for the Board of Education. They have a contract negotiation coming up. So, I think there's going to be, and then whatever the state decides, there's going to be some harder times ahead for the county to have to swallow and see how we're going to pay for these bills. Not to mention the amenities and things like that some of the citizens are looking for that, our candidates have been campaigning for. And it's always easy out there to campaign. They get to sit behind the table and they give you the sheet of paper. You sit there and your eyes were bigger than your stomach, and all of a sudden, whoa, how am I going to pay for this?
Yeah.
I made all these promises, and guess what? I don't know how to pay for it.
So earlier we were saying Brian Crosby was up by about 390 votes. with 10 out of 13 reporting. It looks like Park Hall and Piney Point are at least 2 out of the 3 who are not included in those totals. Park Hall, as we know, had a
Heavy
machine
Democrat vote.
malfunction, so that's why the delay there. Piney Point, could be a good district for Deb Ray. It's hard to say, but I still think, he'll probably stay close enough to her. She won't be able to make up that kind of difference, even unless there were some really skewed numbers in the early voting and/or the absentee ballots. So, it's going to be could be a close race.
Earlier today, with the 3 o'clock report that came out, Piney Point, 209 Republicans, 199 Democrats, and 83 unaffiliated.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you can begin to see it. It'd be hard to make up
those numbers.
Yeah.
Again, it's probably premature, but at this point, you could be seeing a change in that delegate seat. I think Brian Crosby's running an excellent campaign. He's a young man who had, on paper, is a very nice fit for this district. Served as an Army Ranger, went to law school, worked for one of the defense contractors, but he's recently moved out and created his own business. So he's a small business owner himself. If it all holds, I think he'll go to Annapolis and do extraordinarily well.
Yeah, I think he'll do well. Yeah, for sure. We do have a question from one of our viewers. Was there more early voting this year than in the past?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Significantly more.
There's more voters that went out, but from a percentage standpoint, haven't we had a lot of I'm looking at 2014 midterm. So if you look at midterm 2014, and if you look at the number of people who've actually registered from then to now, do we really have
a lot of apples and oranges comparison? I would say this about early voting: it's still there's still a little bit of novelty involved. It's still somewhat new. Not everybody. Some people still like, especially older residents, traditionally still like to go to the polling place on election day and cast the ballot. But more and more, it fits with people's lifestyle to go on an evening or even on a Saturday or a Sunday. And so more are taking advantage of that early voting. And so I think you're seeing a natural increase in the participation for early voting, which is hard to tease out of the numbers. Why more early voting? Is that and a lot of people were trying to read into it. Is that a surge? Is there some kind of wave underway? Those sort of things. We'll just have to wait
I
and
think
see.
you're right. People go to early voting. It's convenient.
It's so convenient.
It's very convenient.
If you're not sure what your schedule is going to be on election day, you just go get it done.
And you never know what's going to happen.
And the other new thing that has been implemented is absentee ballots.
Yeah.
I voted absentee myself just to make sure I got it done. It used to be that it was like school. If you didn't have your homework, you had to have a doctor's note and all that.
Right.
You had to have a very specific reason and a good valid reason for not being able to go to the polls and be granted an absentee. Now it's not quite voting by online or by mail, but it's sort of close. You don't have to have a specific reason. You can request it. They email it to you. You download the ballot. You fill it in and then mail it back to them.
Really simple.
Very simple. It makes it a lot easier.
John, I was just looking at if Park Hall and Piney Point are the 3 precincts for Michigan, because there's 2 voting polls down at Piney Point. The rough numbers are that there's 1,223 registered Democrats and 1,013 registered Republicans at Park Hall, which will give you 22. It gives you 800 unaffiliateds. And down at Piney Point, between the 2 of them, you got 3,656 voters and 769 Democrats, 1,036 Republicans, and then about 470 unaffiliated. So, those are going to be hard numbers for Delegate Ray to make up. I think you're right.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
I mean, again, you've got the absentees. You know,
The absentees, and we have the
stress, you've got the absentee
9,071.
and the early votes.
We have the 9,071.
Yeah.
On,
Now, in the
primary.
end, 4 years ago, after Election Day, we were pretty close. We were less than
500 votes.
Yeah, we were. I think it was 130 votes that separated us,
Mm-hmm.
and I won in the absentee and early voting,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't enough to make up the difference. It's just really, really hard to overcome a deficit of. If it was within 25 votes of each other, and you're
Yeah.
coming down to absentees or early voting, you'd really want to
Right.
pay attention and participate.
Correct.
So, did we answer the?
Yeah, you answered the question, and we do have to take a very quick break. We're having a technical problem that we have to get fixed, and it's only going to take a second to do this fix, unfortunately. Sorry. Park Hall or Margaret Brent, and they were still waiting permission from the state to release what they had. And that was at 9:24. So we're still
So,
waiting.
Yeah, starting to shape up. Just mainly waiting on the St. Mary's numbers.
St. Mary's
I
numbers.
don't know if anyone's heard anything out of Charles County. Any results? Same thing there. I guess they can't release anything until the state gives them the go ahead. So we'll get an avalanche of results all at once.
Oh yeah, yeah. We
Sounds
should
like-
be getting something coming in from Charles as well.
Yeah.
There's a few people watching it. Okay.
So there was a correction. Precinct 8-4, which is Park Hall, Brian Crosby had 615, Deb Ray had 515. So 100 votes spread between the two of them.
So guys, we're anxiously pressing our buttons as fast as you're waiting to hear our answers. We're back. So interesting vote count here, John. You know, if the unofficial results are there, then Deb's up by, or Brian's up by 500, 600 over Deb. Interesting, as sort of as you pointed out there. And folks, this will be interesting to see today or tonight later on as we get the St. Mary's results. Of Brian has carried that Lexington Park as sort of a funny, I'll call it a fish hook. Start down around Park Hall. We're going to come up Route 5. We're going to go down Great Mills Road, then swing down to Spring Ridge Elementary School, which encompasses a greater part of the Lexington Park Development District. And it seems Brian has won pretty handily there. When you get down to Ridge, it appears that Deb has taken Ridge Firehouse and Ridge Elementary School, and I haven't heard any unofficial Valley results, but it appears that the voting block through Lexington Park has carried Brian through. So what you're going to ask next is, okay, how does this translate to other votes? Well, it's interesting to see how these votes have come out, particularly if you're watching the Democratic side. Does the Crosby momentum through Lexington Park also help candidates such as Howard Thompson, Rose Frederick, Tim Ridgel, etc.? And we're all eyes are glued also to this computer screen in front of us to sort of see how this plays itself out in the next, hopefully, half hour or so. And whereas over in Calvert, like I said, nothing unexpected at all. I think it's going to be interesting to see, you know, when the Charles County results come in. I'm expecting that there'll be 4 African American and 1, 5 Democrats, I should say, will be elected county commissioners in Calvert, and then Charles, and then the real race will be Arthur Ellis and Bill Dotson, which may not be a race at all. So we're sort of just guessing in the wind also.
Calvert, not as you point out, Todd. There's no big surprises there. It's become a solid Republican county. They've had a Republican board for the last 4 years. They'll return with 5 Republican commissioners. The only Democrat at the state level is Mike Miller, whose most of his district is made up in Prince George's and Charles. The Register of Wills, Margaret Phipps, has just been
Margaret,
Register
listen, Margaret,
Wills.
how,
She was
she's-
serving back in the 80s.
Yeah,
as
she's
I
been around
recall.
forever
She's
and
been
ever.
there forever.
and she's tied to, she's related to Mike Miller? Or no, Mike Evans?
Mike Evans is her son.
That's right, okay.
The Republican sheriff is her son.
Right.
She's a Democrat, but Mike's the Republican. So,
Interesting how this
Yeah,
stuff
that's
plays out, sports
interesting.
fans.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very interesting.
But I do look at these couple of these numbers here, seeing Brewer gave a very strong, a surprisingly strong showing over in
yeah, I was
Calvert.
surprised.
I mean, 27.93 to 34.75, and then Julian
close.
Nickel, 29.25 to. However, Republican. Just want to sort of run some of those Calvert numbers by everybody again. The at-large seat goes to Buddy Hance. Buddy was a former Secretary of Agriculture with 16,180 votes, and Steve Weems, 13,348 votes. Steve will return for his third term as Calvert County Commissioner. In the lower part, Mike Hart, the incumbent, has 16,201 votes, and Trish Powell comes in with 11,328. Tim Hutchins will have 15,255 votes, and I can't read my own writing. Tim Hutchins ran against, so do you have that there, John?
Who's
Or
he running
Sharon?
Tim-
Hans Wells.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hans-
Susie Hans
Susie Hans Wells had 12,342
342.
votes, and then Kelly McConkey comes in with 15,385 votes, and Bud comes in with 11,579 votes. So,
Well, hey, this is interesting. The reason PG County is late is because they ran out of ballots in some of the machines. And actually, and Brandywine ran out of ballots. That's actually a good thing. So they kept it open.
Yeah.
we have to.
Yeah, I know, that's a really good thing that they need it more. Maybe more people are going out.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
So, sorry we don't have more results. I know a lot of folks are waiting on the
Yeah.
county commissioner races here in St. Mary's County. Charles County, I don't think there are any real hotly contested commissioner races, as you pointed out, Todd. The Senate race might be the only race up there between Arthur Ellis and Bill Dotson, the Republican. Here in St. Mary's, when these results come in, it sounds like we'll have almost
Everything right there.
everything.
Yeah, we should get them.
We'll know very quickly what
Yeah.
kind of who's probably going to prevail, unless they're really, really close and it comes down to absentees. On the national scene, it could be a long night because a lot of results are, it's going to be a while before we know who ends up controlling the House. I doubt it'll be late tonight. It'll probably be into tomorrow before we actually have the final on that.
Yeah, we have Zach Hill, who is reporting in from St. Mary's County Election Board. They are still waiting to get to get cleared to
Okay.
release the results. They do have them. They have all but one. I'm not sure which one is the one that they're
It
holding
must
out
be
on.
2-2.
Margaret Brett?
No.
2-2, which is
No.
Piney Point, I think. It's either Valley Lee or Piney Point. I think it's Valley Lee.
But
Or,
they should
Piney Point.
Piney
should
Point.
be releasing those. Actually. Oh, just got another text. All the results are finally in, so they are waiting to get the
Get them posted.
to get to be able to release them. So we should be getting them any minute.
Very good. We'll stand by.
Yeah, stand by. Should be any second we should be getting them.
Have we had any other questions come in? Is everybody waiting just for results?
Everybody's waiting for
Someone
results.
asked who won Calvert Sheriff's race.
Yeah, the incumbent Sheriff Mike Evans returns. I forget how many terms he's had, quite a few.
He's had a bunch.
But so he won handily. Let's see, I think we
Exhausted. Calvin.
Sheriff Mike Evans
Yeah, I
got
think you got
16,938, and his opponent got 10,135. So
So where is he calling me right now?
pretty big margin there.
So if you have questions, we may have answers. I say may.
We might.
But just don't ask us what the St. Mary's results are, because we don't know them yet.
Yeah, we can't get you those.
So
We're
we're
trying.
starting to get some of the results in the House of Delegates in other areas for anyone who might be interested. It sounds like at least one sitting Republican incumbent may have been defeated,
Oh, who's that?
and that might be Bob Flanagan in
Okay.
Howard County, former Secretary of Transportation under Bob Ehrlich. I actually served with him. He was in the House of Delegates, then he went on to become Maryland's Secretary of Transportation under Bob Ehrlich, sat out for 8 years, and then came back last term and served, and he was in a tough district, so that was one I think the Republicans were hoping to hold. Sounds like he was upset and will lose his seat. So as I said, I think Democrats in the House will probably hold, maybe pick up to 3 or so additional seats. Still waiting to hear some of the results from the Senate. Be interesting to hear Jim Mathias down in the Ocean City
Yeah.
area. You know Mary Beth.
Mary's a really nice woman, and you know, Jim was former mayor of Ocean City. He's had a long track record over there. Actually, John and I engaged Senator Mathias a few years ago on the wind turbine issue on the Eastern
Yeah,
Shore,
that's
and it
right.
became rather contentious as he was pushing hard for a couple wind turbines to be placed in Crisfield, Somerset County.
Somerset County.
And we were working hard with the Navy to protect the Adams radar system around here, and it got I go more than contentious along the way, and finally we were able to prevail, and the wind turbines didn't go up in Somerset that would have interfered with us, but now they want to put the a huge wind turbine complex out over Ocean City, and I don't know where Jim is on that one, but I know that Senator or Congressman Harris has said no, so he's got a congressional hold on it, which will make it interesting. So it's sort of interesting, you know, when you dose around the politics of environment in the state. You know, you look at the mandates that the state's trying to meet as far as green energy is concerned, whether it be solar or whether it be wind or things like that. And you know, I've always argued that the rurals are the ones that get to put up the solar farms, and the rurals are the ones that get to have the wind turbines, and the rurals get to clean up the bay or something like that with oysters. But when you move up into the center, I've yet to see a big wind turbine project in Tacoma Park or a huge solar panel project in Tacoma Park. But you know, the first people screaming about saving the environment in Tacoma Park, and I'm being facetious, but on Tacoma Park.
Well, here's an interesting question that came in. With the unofficial results pointing towards Crosby, what do these early returns say for the third building?
That's a good
It's a good
question.
question.
I mean,
Question.
one thing that was very clear is, and I'll say it now, the presiding officers in the state legislature, Mike Bush and Mike Miller, made it pretty clear that if we sent back the same delegation, we were probably not going to get that third building. I'd say with a Brian Crosby win tonight, that clearly puts that back on the front burner, hopefully, and that project will get funded. That's an $80 million investment, one of the largest investments by the state in the area. We think it's very significant. We've worked very closely with the county commissioners. I know you guys have been very supportive and looking forward to that. And so I'd say it bodes very well.
My answer is, whether it be Ray or Crosby in there, the third building is extremely important for the economic development we're pushing for the county. John was on this thing, for any number of years trying to get it going. As me as being commissioner for the last 8 years, critical important for the county, particularly when you tie the higher education facility, the University of Maryland system to it, and then we look at what we're doing out there at the airport. And as I've said time and time again, if you haven't been out to see what we're working on at the airport, we believe that is truly an opportunity for economic development. It's moving along. We have numerous companies wanting to come in and relocate here and get space. But, at the end of the day, there's only so much space out there we can utilize. So that's a great project that we're looking forward to. And then when we look at Lexington Park, I'm not sure if anybody knows, we have a designation called an opportunity zone that's coming into place, which will afford new investments in Lexington Park to help revitalize Lexington Park with private money. And I think it's important that we look at this thing because we want private money to come in there. You just can't always have public money doing everything. And John and I have discussed this for a number of years. The county's got to make some more significant investments, in Todd Morgan's mind, in the airport, in downtown Lexington Park, up to the Charlotte Hall area, and things like that to keep things going along the way. So it isn't always the taxpayers paying for it, but private industry can be helping us along the way. And I think those are all good things. And like I said, if we get the third building going, we have the intersection of 4 and 235, which seems to be straightening itself out now after such a long time, folks. And I apologize for that, but a state highway project. But also we're going to have the Great Mills Route 5 intersection coming along, and that's been in the books too. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that can get moving also.
Okay, we've actually had a couple of requests to actually report the Calvert County results one more time. So
Probably go slower.
go
We were
slower,
so quick
maybe
last
maybe
time.
speak a little louder. I don't know. But anyways, we will go over the results one more time, especially since we are waiting for St. Mary's County.
Yeah. Todd mentioned this. Buddy Hance, former Maryland Secretary of Agriculture, wins one of the 2 at-large seats. He got 16,180 votes. Weems also will be the number 2 at-large commissioner with 13,348 votes. You want to take District 1?
Yeah, District 1 is Mike Hart. Mike Hart's an incumbent over there. And Mike Hart won with 16,201 votes. And Trish Powell, the Democrat, had 11,328 votes. In the 2nd District, Tim Hutchins, former delegate and head of the state police barracks, 15,255 votes. And Hans Wells, 12,342 votes. And in District 3, Kelly McConkey with 15,385 votes, and Bud with 11,579 votes. So we'll have a all Republican set of commissioners over in Calvert County with 2 incumbents and 3 new guys joining them at the table.
The Register of Wills, Margaret Phipps returns for I don't know how many terms, but it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
She received 14,208. She's one of the few Democrats who gets elected in Calvert County pretty consistently. She defeated Mark Lynch, it looks like. And again, these numbers don't include early voting. They also don't include absentee votes. So that's why they're unofficial. These numbers will change. But this is for voting today. She beat Mark Lynch by 12,000. Mark Lynch received 12,948 votes. And then on the legislative side, Senator Mike Miller, the president of the Maryland State Senate, this is District 27, his portion of Calvert County, and he has 3 counties. It's part of a little bit of Charles, mostly Prince George's, and part of Calvert. Senate President Mike Miller received 9,985 votes in Calvert. Jesse Peed, the challenger, received 11,678 votes. You want to do Jack Bailey?
Yeah, and we have District 29, and in District 29, the Senate side, Jack Bailey had 3,475 votes, and Thomas Brewer had 2,793 votes. And the chunk of 29C, which is the delegate race, we have Delegate CLERK with 3,355 votes, and Julian Nickel with 2,925 votes. Just so you sort of understand the math, in the delegate race, it's about a 2-to-1 ratio between St. Mary's County and Calvert County. So we'll expect to see a number of results coming in hopefully shortly from St. Mary's relative to the 29C race. And then in the District 29 race for Senate, we will have all of St. Mary's County to report on the race between Bailey and Brewer sometime soon.
Yeah, sometime soon.
We also had in District 27C, the incumbent Mark Fisher with 7,783 votes, and his challenger, I forget the gentleman's name, with 5,470 votes. So Fisher returned for his second term up there, or third term, second or third? Third term in Annapolis.
Very good. We're actually starting to get
Yeah, we
quite a
have
few
some
questions.
numbers that are coming in from the State Board of Elections. In the North District, that's Matt Morgan in District 29A. Matt Morgan on early voting received 2,532 votes. Election day, today he received 8,437 for a total of 10,969. Roberta Locher, the Democrat, received a total of 4,784. So the percentage there was almost 70% to 30% Matt Morgan.
That's it.
I'll give you,
Zach Hill's calling in, reporting from election board.
okay.
Are you there?
Hey, Zach, you're on speaker.
Okay, sounds good. So what do you want me to run through first?
Let's go through county commissioner.
County Commissioner, all right, let me walk my way down. County Commissioner President. So Randy Guy came in with 57.7% of the votes.
Okay.
And Howard Thompson came in with 42.4%, or 0.2% of the votes. So Randy Guy had 21,000 total votes from early voting to election day. Howard Thompson had 15,425.
Will you repeat that, please?
Yeah, so Randy Guy had 57.7% of the votes, and he saw 21,065 votes come in
Okay.
between early voting and election day. And Howard Thompson had 42.2% of the votes, and he saw 15,425 of the votes between early voting and election day.
Okay.
And remember, none of these are going to include absentee or provisional ballots yet, which should be tallied, I believe, by the 16th of November in total. Absentees will be totaled by Thursday, or on Thursday.
Okay.
But there wouldn't be enough absentees
Yeah,
to make up for
yeah.
that difference.
Yeah, there's
Yep.
only 1,400 absent. Yeah.
Right. Okay, should we move on to District 1?
Yeah, District 1.
All right, District 1. District 1 is going to Eric Scott Colvin. He saw 54.5% of all votes. So he got 19,742 total votes between early voting and election day. Coming in second was Timmy Ridgel. He saw 35.1% of the votes, and that would be a total of 12,715 total. And then Roy Alvey, he gave a good effort, but he only saw 10.4% of the votes come in, with a total of 3,781 votes between early voting and election day. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, District 3.
Okay. District 3. District 3 was taken by John O'Connor. He saw 57.9% of the votes, with a total of 19,900 total votes. Clark Guy, he was pushing it, but 41.6% of the votes, 14,297 in total. Todd Morgan, he saw a sweep, needless to say. However, it is something to note that 4% of his votes were write-ins, or were against him were write-ins. He had 12,000 write-ins against him, I suppose.
Wow.
It would have been 12,000.
Can't be 12,000.
No, it wouldn't
There
be
can't be no way.
12,000.
I was going to say, come on now.
You know what, Zach? We have these numbers, I think, in front of us now.
Yeah, I think we have the numbers
So,
now. Yeah, we'll
Why don't
roll
we
it.
run through them right from the top in Maryland? In St. Mary's County, these are the, we'll start with the governor's race. And that would be Larry Hogan got 77% of the vote in St. Mary's to Ben Jealous is 21%. That is 28,437 to 7,878. And for comptroller, that wasn't really much of a race. For Attorney General, Craig Wolf in St. Mary's County received almost 60% of the vote to Brian Frosch's 40%. And maybe we'll come back through and give the vote totals. We'll
Okay.
just do the percentage first. Ben Cardin was the number 2 vote getter in St. Mary's. He's already been declared the winner statewide, but in St. Mary's he got 40% of the vote. Tony Campbell, the Republican, got 54% of the vote, and a few others split the rest. In the 5th Congressional District, this is Steny Hoyer. William Devine, the 3rd, the Republican candidate, received 50.8%. Steny Hoyer got 45.7%, and a couple of other candidates each got less than 2%. State Senator, this is Jack Bailey's portion of St. Mary's County, and Tom Brewer. And that vote in St. Mary's split 62.8% for Tom Brewer and 37%, I'm sorry, for Jack Bailey. Let me repeat that. Jack Bailey got 62.8% in St. Mary's County, and then you add those Calvert numbers to that.
Right.
And Tom Brewer received 37%. Matt Morgan, it looks like a 70%, 30% split for Matt Morgan and Robbie Loker. Debray and Brian Crosby. These numbers have more of the, this is 12 of 13 election precincts reporting. Debray received 47.4% of the vote. Brian Crosby received 52.5% of the vote. And that, and all these numbers include the early voting numbers. Jerry Clark received 62.5% of the vote in St. Mary's, and Julia Nichols 37.5%. You've already run through these numbers. We can run through these with the commissioners again real quick.
We never got to Hewitt and Frederick.
Yeah, we didn't
Mike
finish
Hewitt?
the
Okay. Mike Hewitt 60.5% and Rose Frederick 39.5%. So Mike Hewitt gets reelected pretty soundly according to this.
Tim Cameron.
Do we do John O'Connor?
Yeah.
Yeah, 57.
Okay. And then for the sheriff's race, we have, let's see, state's attorney, the treasurer, clerk of the court. We're going by that now. Clerk of the court, Debbie Birch, with 56% defeats Faye Wheeler with almost 44%. We'll come back to the judge of the orphans court. In the sheriff's race, Sheriff Cameron, the incumbent Republican, received 67.2% of the vote, and Ted Bellavoine 32.7%. So about 67-33% split there.
Very good, Zach.
So back to the judges of the orphans court. Let's see. And this is, they take the top 3 vote getters. The top 3 vote getters will be the Republicans in this case, and that would be Allie Babcock with 21.6%, and then followed by Bill Mattingly, who was the top vote getter, who received 27% of the vote, and then Michael White is the 3rd Republican and 3rd top vote getter. He received 18.6% of the vote. So those are most of the contested races, and those include the early voting results. Want to go through any of them in any greater detail? We just kind of ran through those quickly because they popped up pretty fast.
Pretty quick.
As we knew they were going to.
Yeah, we knew they would. Sure, I mean, we could start going over maybe, let's start going back from the top on the commissioners. Start with Commissioner President.
I'll mention, I just got word, it sounds like the Democrats believe that they've retaken control of the House at the U.S. House of Representatives.
Okay.
I don't know if that's being reported on TV or anything, but at least folks who I know in D.C. are reporting that the Democrats will retake the House. Big win by the governor here in St. Mary's. Frankly, big win for most of the Republicans.
Yeah, in the I'm looking at the screen here now. At the contested race for County Commissioner President, looks like it was a 5,000 vote margin by Randy Guy over Howard Thompson, which I find pretty surprising. I thought this race was honestly
We all thought that would be
a lot closer than what it was. So to Commissioner President Guy, congratulations on coming back for a second term. To Howard, congratulations also for doing such a great job out there. We look at the first commissioner district of Eric Colvin. He was the new Republican on the block, and he comes in with 19,742 votes. Timmy Ridgel, 12,715, and Roy Alvey, 3,781. I'm not really too surprised by that one at all. I thought Alvey getting into the game so late as he did really, sort of messed up a couple of the votes along the way, but even his votes tied together. Well, his votes tied together with Ridgel's could have made the competition there a lot closer.
Yeah.
To the second district, Commissioner Hewitt returns with 21,950 votes, or 60% of the vote, to Rose Fredericks, 14,321. Commissioner Hewitt's been there a long time and has done a real good job up there. So congratulations for him.
60%.
60% of the vote.
Yeah.
John O'Connor and Clark Guy. Another really tough race out there that I was surprised to see. The distance here is that he comes in with Commissioner O'Connor 19,900 votes and 14,297 for Clark Guy. That's a big number there. So
yeah, pretty big split.
That was some of these votes are surprising to me after sitting here watching the game for as many years as I had, and the other day I got 28,714. And I want to thank the 1,200 people that wrote write-ins against us, hoping that Mickey Mouse and other people are happy out there. That's okay.
Yeah.
So 4 of the Republican incumbent commissioners return. Tom Jarbo, the Republican, retired,
Right.
and that seat went to a Republican. So you'll have a 5-member Republican board.
For the second time in a row.
Second time in a row. And Eric Colvin will be the new Republican commissioner elect at this
Right.
point. He'll be sworn in. I guess you guys get sworn in December.
December sometime, yeah.
And some.
So yeah, if we just run through state senate real
Okay.
quick.
We have Jack Bailey with 22,941 votes to Thomas Brewer's 13,490. I guess you add those numbers up, and I haven't added them up yet, but Jack, convincing winner there.
62% in St. Mary's County.
Yeah, and so there's that little bit of margin there. And then Matt Morgan, not unexpectedly, comes in with 10,009, almost 11,000 votes up north to Robbie Loker's 4,784. Matt's had his second term coming back as the delegate of the north, and that's always been a very, very strong Republican seat up there.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is up there in Golden Beach Country Mechanics or Charlotte Hall area. And it has been, we've been announcing all evening the final tally of Brian Crosby, 6,173 votes to 5,567 for delegate race. So we will have a new delegate representing District 29B. That'll be Brian Crosby, so congratulations to him.
Congratulations.
And then lastly, we have the 29C vote, which was 5,686 votes for Jerry Clark and 3,393 for Julian Nichols. That's about 2-1. And as we had spoken earlier in the evening, the St. Mary's County side is about a 2-1 favor, Republican to Democrat. So quite frankly, folks, that tracks just about pretty close to what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Calvert County side, that it's about evenly split between Democrats and Republicans. So that vote total really bodes pretty much for a party line, vote as far as I can tell right here.
Another one that we talked about earlier was District 28, which is Charles County, and that would be the Arthur Ellis is the Democrat who defeated a long-serving Senator Mac Middleton in the primary. Arthur Ellis, we thought might have it was reported that would have a serious challenge from Bill Dotson. In the end, that didn't pan out at all. Arthur Ellis defeats Bill Dotson by a factor of 65 to 35%. Arthur Ellis got 31,629 votes. Bill Dotson 16,820. So pretty strong. And if you add the two numbers for Jack Bailey and Tom Brewer, the two numbers from Calvert and from St. Mary's, Jack Bailey wins by 61% to 38%. A total number of votes for Jack Bailey of 26,958, just shy of 27,000, to Tom Brewer, who just shy of 17,000 votes. So a 61-39 split there, not even close. Elsewhere around the state in some of the Senate races, it looks like some of the Democrats are performing pretty well. We talked about those 5 seats the governor was looking to pick up. Thus far, down in Ocean City, down in the Worcester County, Wycomico, and Somerset County, it looks like the challenger, Republican Mary Beth Carrozza, is up. You've got only 62 out of 68 precincts reporting, but Mary Beth Carrozza is up by 52.6 to 47.3% over Jim Mathias. So that's a pretty decent margin at this point. I would think that may end up holding. So Jim Mathias, the incumbent Democrat, may end up going down. Up in the Baltimore County area, I think Kathy Klossmeyer, who was expected to have a serious challenge by a sitting Republican member of the House, appears to be holding on to her. Correct, Chris Mealy appears to be holding on to her seat at this point. So, what else? We've kind of ran through a lot of results here.
30 seconds.
Okay, looks like definitely all of our results unofficial results are in. And definitely St. Mary's County does have a lot of provisional ballots they still need to count, as well as the absentee.
Provisional absentee.
Yeah, but I don't think that even with those absentees reversed, there's unless we look at the Delegate Ray and Colvin race or Crosby race, I don't think there's anything there's nothing to me that stands out that's going to change what we're talking about here this evening.
Yeah, they have enough separation that's that result won't change. That outcome won't change, based on my experience.
I agree with you.
These are changed already. All right, well, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us, and we appreciate everybody, all of our viewers, and the questions. And definitely we'll be updating the site as things go on, more and more as more and more results come in. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you guys coming
Glad
in.
to be here.
You bet.
Yeah.